Wizard of the Coast has come out with a second apology around the OGL, but it's a lot of fluffy language and some cool things that they've said, but is it really enough? Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Mark from Solo Games, and today we're going to dive right into the OGL second apology from Kyle Brink, who is the executive producer of D&D. Sounds like he's pretty high up and has a lot of power, and he finally wrote an apology out to the entire community from the website to just basically say, here's, we're sorry. First off, the apology right off the bat is a lot longer, which is great because it's a lot of content. And it does look like it's, giving you a lot more details about what they're sorry for, what went wrong, and what kind of things are going to change. And the other really major part is it does seem sincere, at least the way that he's kind of portraying himself. So we'll kind of start from there, right? Reading through the apology, Kyle writes, "First, though, let me start with an apology. We're sorry, we got it wrong." It's pretty good. It's a good way to start this thing. "Our language and requirements in the draft OGL were disruptive to creators and not in support of our core goals of protecting and cultivating an inclusive play environment and limiting the OGL to TTRPGs." This is a good response. Right off the bat, he's saying, the language written was not what it's supposed to be. "Then we compounded things by being silent for too long. We hurt fans and creators when more frequent and clear communications could have prevented so much of this." That's a good start. The problem is you weren't silent. In fact, your team did give a response. It's just not the right response and not the one that a lot of people were looking for. That's a big deal though, right? "Starting now, we're going to do this better, more open and transparent with our entire community of creators, with the time to iterate, to get feedback, and to improve." Again, on the surface, this is fine. There's no issues here. My only concern is, what does that mean? Now, you're going to take in feedback, but does that mean that you're actually going to apply the feedback for anything? Or is it more like, hey, we hear what you're saying. Here's what we're going to push out, right? Meaning, I don't know how much this actually affects. So what to expect? On January 20th, this coming Friday, they're going to share a proposed OGL documentation, so OGL 1.2, for everyone to get some feedback and start sharing. Then, after everyone reviews this, they're going to have a survey to open for you to fill out. In the survey, I think this is just going to be more like, hey, what do you like about it? What do you not like about it? What kind of changes do you want to propose, etc. Standard survey things to get feedback from their customer, right? And of course, they want the survey to be open for 2 weeks. That way they can collect a lot of feedback. Then we would compile, analyze, react to, and present back what we have heard from you. The issue here, again, is, look, they can collect all the feedback they want, but if they don't listen or they say, hey, that's great, thank you for your feedback, we don't agree with it, we're going to do this instead. What changes here, though, right? So, I think a lot of people are going to go to the feedback and probably just say, I don't want OGL 1.2. Can we just have the old OGL? Don't do any changes. And I guarantee you, WOTC is going to say, no, that's not possible. It's not in our best interest to do this. So I don't know if we're going to be at another impasse going forward from this, right? The rest of the letter details a lot of the key changes that they're going to make, and specifically what they're planning to not touch from the 1.0 old school OGL to the 1.2 proposed draft that's coming out Friday. So the key here of what will not be touched is going to be video content, accessories for your own content. So let's say you make your own content, you make your own accessories, that's up to you. Non-published works, so this is where you do things for other people, contract services, etc. VTT content, virtual tabletop content, is going to be not part of this. DM Guild content, just it's some other program, I think, that they're talking about here. Old OGL 1.0A content. So again, this is pretty key. This means that there's no clawbacks, because if you remember in the original contract, they were going to say, if you created content under the OGL 1.0, you will basically be forced to sign this new one, and we'll start clawing back your revenues, your whatever profits, etc. And that's at the higher end if you make a lot of money. If you don't make a lot of money on it, you do have to still report, which again, it's just adding a barrier to entry, right? For a lot of creators, that reporting tier is actually kind of annoying. It's a lot of work to do, especially when they're not like doing this for maybe full time. Your revenue. No royalty or financial reporting. This is pretty interesting. So first of all, this is pretty huge. This signals that maybe they're not going to ask for any money from the D&D content, but it sounds really fishy to me, right? So if the whole point from, the like the conversation back in the Fireside Chat last year was about Wizard needs to monetize D&D way more because these players are not being monetized, then you saying I'm not going to take any part of your revenue almost goes against that. So is that going to come down the line later? Is there some other language about maybe it's not note your revenue for previous content, but for new content, we'll have to take part of it? I'm not really sure. It just kind of sounds sneaky. Or they can do things like, hey, we won't take from your revenue, but we're going to take from your profits because look, you're already making money. We're going to take a cut of the profit. Maybe there's something like that, right? The last bit is the ownership of your own content. So basically, there's no license back requirements for things that you create. This is pretty good on the surface, right? This just means that Wizards won't own your content. You still own you retain ownership of your own content. The issue here, though, is does that mean that Wizards also own your content? So something like, hey, you own it, but so do we. Or, hey, they won, but so did we. Like, is that what this is? Where basically they're just saying, if you create content, we both own it. So they still own it. That means they could still sell your content and not pay you a royalty. So I don't understand what this ownership part means. Again, the details of the whole OGL will detail like exactly what this means, but at the surface, it sounds like it's a good idea, probably what people are asking for. So all of this part of the apology letter is well and good, but the problem is what isn't actually mentioned in here, right? So looking through it, these are the things that they're saying we're not going to touch, they're not going to change, these are going to be what it is. But I hate it when they say very little, again, because basically what's more important in a lot of these cases is what they don't say. And what they don't say are two big things that they just have not even talked about a lot, which I suspect will be a big part of the OGL. Number one, they never mention anything about video games or modules, which again, huge categories for D&D. Most people are going to be using content like that, and that's where they probably will get a lot of their money. Like if you think about it, somebody who builds like a miniature or something, or builds a special dice, they're not really gonna like make a ton of money. It's not a lot of money on the line for those kind of thing. However, if you build a video game and you didn't officially get a license through Wizards, what does that mean? Does that mean, first of all, that they claw back on everything? Like none of the things that they excluded before because your category is different, it doesn't include you? I'm not sure. But the other part of this too is, from just the way that it's looking, especially that line about old OGL 1.0 content, it seems like, yeah, those won't be monetized. But does that mean that new material, anything created post OGL 1.2 are going to be monetized, right? With maybe sixth edition rules coming out, that's what they're thinking. And the other key is what percentage they will take and how will they do that? I guess we'll find out on Friday, but that's where we kind of stand. The key is this, only time will tell. Because look, we still don't know what the final draft will be like. Even after they release draft 1.2, that doesn't mean that's the official documentation, right? There's going to be users giving feedback and everyone's going to come back and forth about what they want, what they like, what they don't like. And that's really going to then become the actual final draft. And here's the thing. How do you know they don't at some time down the road in OGL 1.4, 1.7 sneak some other creepy shit in there and then start, taking more money in ways that you haven't thought about? We have to face reality, guys. You're not a lawyer, I'm not a lawyer. But WOTC has tons of lawyers, WOTC has tons of rules lawyers, and they know how to kind of finagle these little, crevices and be able to, get more money and hit people with stuff. And the reality is they don't care. The reason they don't care is because a lot of these small people that really get slammed by WOTC, they don't have the power, they don't have the influence, they won't say anything. They're just going to pay their dues and move on. Right? And the larger content creators and influencers, like a lot of people mention Critical Role. I'm going to tell you right now, guys, you have to understand how the world works. Critical Role is not going to be affected by OGL 1.NEX. It's not going to be affected by any changes in OGL as long as Critical Role makes money for WOTC. Think about it. If they grow the player base, they continue to do the content, they continue to grow the player base, get more people interested in D&D, WOTC is going to give them the most sweetheart deal you ever think in your life. Not only are they probably not going to even pay any royalties, they're probably going to get paid by WOTC, and they have been in the past, and that's the key. If you are one of those people, look, the world opens to you, and that's the thing. You have to understand, these people at different layers, they don't play by the same rules. They can write this language however they want, but they're going to sign special contracts with special people. And that's true for everything. If you guys remember, when Microsoft tried to do their Twitch killer product, what deal did they sign with Ninja? The reality is this: everybody's going to get a special deal. It's going to be different depending on what it is and how influential, how big you are. That's how the world works. These rules do not apply equally to everyone. And that's what I think most people are kind of complaining about. It's not about the fact that, oh, it's going to affect everyone. Really, it's just affecting the people who probably won't have the voice, the power to do anything about it or say anything about it, right? That's why I'm a big fan of what Paizo is doing with his initiative to work with a bunch of other creators to say, hey, we're just going to make our own version of OGL. I think that's long term probably the right thing to do, because then they can license all of their stuff under that and not have to work with WOTC's version of anything. Because again, WOTC owns the OGL, so they can continue to change it to fit whatever they need at that moment. And the reality is, you don't forget, D&D players are not being monetized enough. So if it's not the OGL, there will be other things. And lastly, think about this too. We can read this apology letter and say, hey, this guy's sincere. Wow, what a great, apology. Everything's fixed. Is it really fixed though? Remember, the guy who's now giving you a sincere apology approved the OGL, right? He likely approved the first apology as well. And he only backed off from all of that because of major backlash, major unsubscription from all the fans. And then he came out with the second message. This guy is not a good guy. Like, if you think about how the structure works, there's no way he's like, oh, hey, I'm here fighting for everyone, but it's the people who wrote the. No, there's no people who wrote the OGL. You published this thing. You allowed this to happen. How can something as big as this go basically to the public without him approving it? He 100% had a hand in this. In fact, how much of this language was written by him initially? The one that you don't like. Yeah. I know it's towards the end of the video, so people already left. But this is why it matters for us Magic players. Look, if Daddy WotC wants monies, they're always going to get their monies. And guess what? Magic's back on the menu, boys. Because they know, despite how price sensitive Magic players are, we will always pay, and we'll always pay more. Look, I know everyone says, hey, there's more D&D players out there. Yes, sure. Maybe D&D is more popular than Magic. Look, I think it's debatable, but okay, fine. Let's just give them that. It is more popular. There is no debate at all between which one makes WotC, or compared to every single IP under Hasbro, makes more money. No comparison. Magic the Gathering is probably bringing in almost all of the revenue, top line revenue, bottom line profits for WotC. Look, I'm not talking about just top line revenue, because I know they have movies and stuff like that makes a ton of money, brings in revenue, but their investment is huge too. So look, when your company looks at what makes money, they have to look at ROI. They can't just look at pure revenue. If I spend $1 million to make $1 million, I made nothing, right? I'm better off spending $20,000 making $100,000. That's it for me, guys. Mark Solo Games, signing out. See you later.